So part of it is your guys' work because you both collaborate on it, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we went through the whole process of kind of selecting which artwork kind of promoted that, positive messaging, and yours stood out, man. I was like, oh, this is sick. We were looking for stuff that were more typographic, illustration driven, things that would project really well on the wall. But when you hit that animation on yours, it was like, ooh, this is nice.
Oh, thanks. I mean, that was something that I think when I saw the little post that you said, what we would do, how we would contribute.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, you know, what can we do? And I was just thinking about this, and I was like, you know what? And I read the criteria and everything, and I was like, okay, I wanted to do something possibly even more towards what, you know, the whole cause with the Black Lives Movement and all this kind of stuff, right? But I kind of wanted to get into more of like, okay, what have been the issues pre-COVID and then post, right? And then or currently. And I was like, okay, let me see what's going on. And then I actually talked to Grace, and I said, hey, you know, as a former student now, I don't know if she caught you up with what she's doing today, but we probably could do that after this. But I said, hey, what do you think? You know, since she was more within the demographic of the millennials, and I hate to use that terminology, right? And did a little bit of research on, like, you know, what are some of the biggest social issues out there, and one of them was still, you know, climate change with our Earth, you know, and those are some of the research I was doing, you know. And when Grace and I looked at some things, and we're like, dude, like that's still a big thing, you know. And even though
very consistent.
Very consistent. I mean, I think some of the research we're talking about was like from 2018 and then today. And then, you know, some of the, you know, political issues were kind of like in the 4 and 5 range, right, Grace, around there?
Yeah.
And then
just about.
and then like, you know, climate change or, you know, Earth and all that stuff was still number 1. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's something we should still, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff will just be, you know, we'll try to settle ourselves, you know, when it comes to like the political climate of what's going through with the Black Lives cause and all that kind of stuff. But we still have to watch out after our Earth, right? And I think that was some of the inspiration that we had when Grace and I were trying to talk about what can we do. And I got some inspiration from some things that I saw about like Mother Earth. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of a cool thing to kind of do like there was a lot of images like similar like that with like, you know, a mother pregnant and stuff like that and wanting to give birth. And I thought that was a kind of a cool, and I wanted to do my spin on it. And then when I asked Grace, I said, hey, you know, she's been doing a lot of these cool little like little GIF animations I've seen on her IG stuff and or actually the gram. And it was kind of cool. And she's been doing these, and I said, hey, Grace, would you like to collab on something? And she said, yeah. So we just kind of did this, and I did the illustration. I said, yeah, you run with the animation part of it, and then we'll kind of go off of that. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty cool, man. I enjoyed it, man.
So, yeah, I had a really good time working on it. It's fun.
I was going to ask you both. So, like, when it comes to creatives, it's easily to fall into that sector of like going with what's trending, right? Like Black Lives Matter, obviously, important topics and issues, right. And police brutality. But I like that approach of Earth, right? Like, also, we're all on this planet, and talking about all these heavy issues. Yet alone, let's focus on what keeps us grounded and what we live on today. So. That's pretty good. That's pretty cool how you guys did some research prior before actually executing it.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that when we started looking at, like, you know, the climate change stuff and things like, you know, overpopulation and then pollution and things of that were kind of like, you know, you kind of see some of that stuff in the illustration that inspired a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Big factory and everything, you know, deforestation and things of that nature. It's still a big thing is that I think as human beings, we still need to take care of our Mother Earth, you know, if there's no Mother Earth, there's nothing. I mean, what does our future have, you know, if we don't have a place to call home, basically, you know, if we're killing everything off the planet. And I just think we, as human beings, we kind of have to do a better, you know, do better at that to kind of like make sure that, you know, that our Earth stays, you know, at bay, because she's hurting right now. I think just with everything, so.
And we just thought it was, one of those topics that's undeniably universal, right? It's not only a problem that affects us all, but it's a solution that will require all of us, right? So we kind of thought about like, oh, who's our audience, right? And we realized it's everyone. But, what speaks to everyone? That's a really hard one to hit because, very few topics could, be applicable to all audiences in the same way that Earth is.
Very true. It doesn't have any ethnic divide when it comes to Earth, right? There's there's nothing. We're all here. We're all here. We're all, human beings. I thought that was something that, we wanted to kind of portray in illustration and animation as well. So,
do you think being a creative, a designer, an artist, how important do you believe in utilizing our skill to talk about it?
You want to answer that one, Grace? Or?
I mean, I think of course, right? All art communicates in some way, so you might as well give your work and yourself a purpose, right? Like I've worked as hard to, be as privileged as I am to be able to make things that can send a message. And, it is a privilege to be able to do that and, call that my job as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think, as artists and creatives, we really have to, take a stand and be a good, I guess, so to speak, role model with what we try to portray in our work.
I think even now, like with all these subjects that are heavy-handed, like it's more important to have purpose. I hear that word being used a lot now. So I strongly believe like this project, for example, is going to be an opportunity to highlight that and tell younger designers, as well as all the more veterans, that everything we touch needs to have purpose. I strongly believe that now, and I feel like I'm having more of a transition in my career. Like everything I move towards and forward, all has there's going to be a lasting fingerprint on it, right? It's not just going to fade away.
I think we work with a lot of people from Reason to Survive, as I think, right, Alan? And I work with the Jacob Center and stuff for, a lot of like troubled youths and stuff like that. And it starts with a lot of them understanding like, hey, man, we need to, pay it forward to some of these for some underprivileged kids to kind of like, hey, get to understand what's going on in our societies, especially with climate change too, as well, but there are other heavier subject matters that, that are out there. But I really think that, climate change for us as a whole, people could do this, so.
Hey, Rod, are you well familiar with climate change and what's been going on Mother Earth?
Well, I mean, some of it. I mean, I'm an avid surfer and stuff like that, and I love,
You surf?
Yeah, I'm more of a bodyboarder than anything, but I spend a lot of my time, at the beach all the time.
Good.
So I just think that,
Right.
When I see stuff, I mean, at the beach, I start there, and I just kind of, I always been, it's like, let's not pollute it, and that's just, I've always been like that since I've been a kid. And I really think that's something important to, at least for me, keep the beaches clean, keep the water clean. That's what we have and so forth. But, obviously the other bigger issues with all the deforestations and all that stuff. I've researched some of it here and there, but I just thought that the topic matter, was something important for like what Grace was saying, like as human beings, we need to be like, together on this, so.
And Grace, I know Ron asked you to collaborate on this, but you could either say yes or no, right? But you wanted to participate.
Oh, of course.
Talk about why you wanted to participate.
One, I would never turn down working with Ron. Great time, undeniably. You know this. But I really like the concept of the project. It was, I've grown up with a lot of, focus on, climate activism. I've taken a lot of just like courses on that too. But even outside of that topic, like I feel like my generation of artists, so much of it is about activism. A lot of, LGBT, plus that was a lot of my high school. Now it's getting into more, environmental, political, now that we're growing up a little bit. And, it's just always been a constant push for change, right? And then I was like, oh, wow, this is, really a platform where I can use all of those ideas in a bit of a broader context, I guess. So it was kind of a fun way to think about working with the community, working with change, working with what I've learned, you know, so far in my life. And it just kind of all came together. And like I said, you know, I've been privileged to be able to try to make a change with, you know, what I love to do. So why not? Yeah.
Like for me, I've worked in the commercial industry for over 15 years. And I had a breaking point last year where I was like, you know, yes, it's you know, I'm keeping the lights on with this check, but like there's really no happiness and no purpose behind it. I think being a Filipino American and being back in San Diego and growing up in this area that I grew up in after 15 years away, it's like I have this platform now. I have the more experience, and like you in high school, you know, you're always around these types of topics. For me, I had to revisit it and kind of retrain myself to, you know, talk more about it because I was so corporate, and I kind of lost touch with it. And that was the breaking point. I finally realized that's why I'm doing more stuff like this and working more with people like you, because I think there's a common thread there that you guys see it too.
For sure.
All right. So how has projecting a vision served you well in your own life and in your work? Like, can you think of any examples? Projecting, like think about it. You're projecting the future and you're trying to create something that's out there, maybe doesn't exist. For example, with this art piece, right? Like what's the takeaway that you hope to people to see or walk away with?
Oh man. I mean, I feel like
okay, it's literally like 1 minute or that's going to be looping. So when I first saw it, I automatically aesthetically thought it was beautiful, right? Now hearing you guys talk about it, I almost want to just, do you have it up on your screen, Ron?
Yeah, I do.
Can you pull it up?
Yeah. Let me share it?
Yeah, please. Here, let me share my screen.
I think I could share mine actually.
I think I had to unlock it.
Okay.
Maybe having that visual, because I was literally driving home from LA on my phone. And I saw it moving, and I almost crashed. I tell you. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And they were like, "Yeah, that's Ron." And I go, "Oh, I know Ron." So it was more of a connection.
Yeah, I think I could just share this one.
So walk me through this, and you know, as an animator, as an illustrator, as you're creating it, like, what were you thinking in your head that people would walk away with it? You know, like.
Well, man, you know, like.
So detailed too.
Well, I mean, gosh, you know, again, like I said earlier, I mean, when Grace, honestly, like she kind of like brought up the idea about, you know, climate
activism.
Change. Yeah, with activism, climate change and stuff. And I said, you know, and then that's where I said, well, when we start coming out with my sketch or with my ideas, I just, you know, thumbed it all out. I have it on my sketchbook, but, you know, so I started just kind of just figuring out, okay, Mother Earth was kind of the theme, you know, so I just went with that and I said, okay, what can we do? And then, you know, starting with her, I wanted to kind of get her, Mother Earth, a little bit more ethnic, right? And that's just me, you know, and that's just us. And I think all of us being people of color, you know, like, you know, Grace being, you know, biracial and Japanese and stuff like that. And, you know, I always thought like the woman should be a little ethnic, right? At least Mother Earth in my mind. And so I started just like, you know, adding her as at first, and then I started getting into like, okay, what are the elements that are kind of like the pieces that are going to kind of be for the Earth, and what are the I guess what I'm trying to say, what are the bigger, what are the climate changes issues that we're trying to address here on the image. So as far as like drawing her, you know, I just kind of started doing her hair and then kind of like making like the earth around her, like the waves and stuff, like kind of being part of her hair, and then the earth growing out of herself, and then all little elements like overpopulation and factories with air pollution and then toxic waste in the seas and all those little things. I just started adding those and started looking at what were the bigger issues in there, and then obviously the glaciers melting, right? And I wanted to add that on there. Now I'm gonna put a caveat on this one. Or I'm sorry, but I had to to go through all this, I had to purchase some stock stuff, and use a lot of these stock images. I had to use. There's some time constraints here, but I thought, a lot of that sort of stuff I had to purchase to kind of do illustration. But everything else is mine now, obviously. But so I had to put that in there. I'm sorry, but I'm just doing all that stuff. But and I just wanted to kind of feel like it was almost like a paper cutout too. When I was doing all that, because with all the little shadows and stuff like that on here, and then the idea was kind of like, okay, what can we do after this? So I handed Grace the first sketch of this, and she actually did a comp of it. She animated the elements over my sketch. And I was just like, okay, there you go.
You have it.
You have it. And the way it was animated, I was like, oh, great. And then when I gave her the final image, I was just like, okay, cool. I just hoped it portrayed Mother Earth, with all the elements in there, the roots of the hair and all that kind of, just subtly, you know what I mean? Just those sort of things. And,
can you hit play, Ron?
What's up?
Hit play on that thing. So, Grace, as you're animating this, so those graphics that come down her face, it's almost like she's being scanned. Things are animating towards little elements on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a rhyme or reason behind that? It becomes red. I feel like those.
I mean, just kind of like color theory. Everyone likes the happy colors, and red is fairly unhappy. But I don't know. With that, I was just having a lot of fun with it. I mean, I knew our overall message that we wanted to portray, but for me, what I've found is just, it has to be interesting, it has to be compelling to look at. And of the animations that I've been doing for some work is I've been commissioned to make some skate videos and, very skate culture, pop culture. So even though we were talking about a more serious subject, I really wanted to keep that style in there because it is, it's more eye-catching that way to me anyways. And a lot of this movement is, by younger audiences, and you have to make art that's going to attract, those type of people as well. So I was like, oh, what would I be really interested in? What would people in my age group be interested in? Maybe things like that. So.
As I watch this animate, and I'm watching just her face, right? And as the colors transition into that deep red, her eyebrows kind of has that emotion as she's in pain, right? And it's almost that's kind of the focal point for me is she's being injected with these bad vibes, and it's really hurting her.
For sure.
Right? Yeah, I think that's great. And I think like Grace was saying, even the technique of how it feels it's not, it has that crude animation skill to it, I think it fits perfect for this, and
yeah, definitely wish we had a little more time, but with what we were working with,
you could have finessed it a little bit, but I love it, and I think
I think it came out pretty well. The effects that you put on afterwards.
Yeah, it's like an overlay of an animated thing. It's kind of a trick that someone in an animation class over when I was at Art Center, they kind of just told me how if you're using flat art to kind of just to add that little overlay to kind of make it feel like it's stepping a little bit. And that was just something that I thought that it kind of needed to
Yeah, it was a very nice texture.
Little pop texture on there, animated texture, so to speak. But
yeah, she's just so beautiful. You're just stunning. But it's unfortunate that she's being injected with this pain.
Yeah, and the little blood drop at the very last second right there was just whoa, okay, cool. Especially right there when it's kind of where the glaciers are melting and stuff, and it kind of aims in that specific part, and all that. And it just, I liked it,
And I think even just her gesture as though it's like a baby in there.
Yeah, that was a very nice play.
Yeah, that was I was trying to when I was getting inspired to do some of that stuff, I had it positioned as holding it here's my belly.
Yeah.
And it was just well, how would, and a lot of people were women were nurturing it more like this. So I thought that was a kind of cool way of and it's, to use her hands basically to hold the earth, like it's her baby and whatnot, Did
you title this?
Yeah, just Mother Earth. That's all I titled it, you know. And I did post some of this stuff on some, you know, social media. Is that okay, Alan?
Yeah, for sure. What were some of the feedback on it? The comments?
Love it. Just a bunch of all that stuff, you know. It's just on one of my stories, and everyone was just like, ooh, you know. And I actually put music to it. I put Earth Crisis.
Yeah.
To it, you know?
Is there sound that you can play too?
There's one with the sound that I had. Remember, I think I asked you, like, should I make one with sound? And then you're like,
yeah.
Maybe with two. But then I said, well, if they're not going to project any speakers, it's all good. But I wonder if you could hear it.
Yeah, I want to hear that, because that's another element of design that puts it to the next level.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just saying, like, you know, with this sort of stuff, I mean, as you know, it's Earth Crisis, and you know, Steel Pulse. I know, Grace, do you know who Steel Pulse is?
Fairly familiar, but not enough to be a fan, I'm afraid.
I do.
Of course you do.
Before my time, I think.
Oh my God. We're like uncles, me and Alan now.
I was listening to, do you know who Beanie Man is, Grace?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not totally foreign. Okay. Okay.
But, yeah.
Man, I think
that's it, you know.
Grace, being biracial, female, a creative, what are some of the challenges you've endured in your career, and how do you want the future generation, the up and coming students, like the ones that work at the arts that are in 5th and 6th grade that are you know, trying to find their way, like how do you want your experiences as a female, biracial, creative, doesn't get a lot of love, right? How do you want them to see what you do as an influence?
Well, I think I've been really, really lucky with my experience, and Ron knows where I went to high school too. It's extremely inclusive and, you know, a big focus on the arts. But I guess, I mean, there are a few different things. I feel like one of the big ones is like, oh, I'm a girl, I should always be just like painting flowers, you know, and, you know, doing the pretty things. And it kind of leads into that with some of the work that I've done in skate culture. Designing, you know, boards and skate edits and things. It's always very surprising, you know, asking like, oh, does your boyfriend skate? And, you know, not even in the picture. So, you know, kind of wondering, it's more of just like being accepting of the application of art, right? And then even working a bit more of my limited commercial side, having done, you know, business logos and things. You know, it's, again, I've been lucky being, you know, just having that opportunity, but so many people doing similar jobs as me are all male, you know, and it would just be nice, of course, to talk to other females or, you know, other gender identifications that just aren't always men, right? Or I feel like that would just be the biggest one. So just, I guess I'd want younger kids to not be afraid just to go for it, you know, and they can do any sort of art in any sort of the areas of culture that they want to do. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you're female, you're going to do the pretty things.
Yeah. And
that's it. And, you know, the cool stuff, you know, that's all for the boys. I think that's complete, pardon my language. So, yeah.
It's interesting working with these kids at the arts. You know, some are, you know, junior high, and you can hear whispers in the class. You know, some are not liking who they are or still trying to question their or discover their sexuality. And I kind of utilize those, and I push them to express it in their art. And they never thought of it that way. I'm like, now's your opportunity to experiment and see what beautiful things you can create, because it's rough, man. Kids these days, I feel, are just tough.
Kids are tough.
Yeah, they are. Dude, that's just.
And it's unfortunate, but I think people like you and Ron can definitely, you know, especially with this art piece, you know, open up those doors even further to have those discussions.
Right. I think when you see a lot of young people and they see you, you know, and they say, hey, I could do that too. Look at this person, you know, whether, you know, a female, biracial, you know, a person of color and whatnot. And if, you know, I think we could become those great role models for them, for the younger kids, you know, especially for kids within, you know, our area and so forth.
Yeah. You know, Ron's familiar with our area we grew up in, and that's all we had was either sports, art, or gang banging, right?
Yeah, that was it, man.
Like those are the three pillars that you can either do all three or do one or do none.
Right.
But I think that's why it's important for us here on the screen to really have that voice and show, like, you know, we came from these areas and yet we're still doing what we love to do. And,
exactly.
And students will definitely harp on that. And I also feel like we're relatable. Like we talk the way they talk. We look the way they look. We're not using some heavy, you know, heavy words or verbiage. It's really like, you know, and I think that's important too. And this recording will live on our site. We'll get that up there. But yeah, I just want to thank you both for being part of this project, being part of the first ever design week.
Wow. It's cool, man.
It's a big deal. And I feel we have momentum, you know.
Yes, sir.
We may not have the time to do the stuff we wanted to like do to perfect it, but there's always next year.
Yeah, man, this is the first one, and you know, like I said, you know, whatever I could do to help you guys out over at the AIGA, especially now that you're at the helm.
Oh yeah, Ron's always down, man. I'm like, and you too, Grace. I'm like, yeah, Grace is always going to be part of it now.
No, man, Grace.
I would love to.
Grace is awesome, man. But I appreciate it, Alan. I'm humbled that, you know, that we got a piece to get up there, and I think this is really cool that you guys are doing this, and I'm real happy for you guys.
Yeah. Any last words you want to say before we conclude?
No, man. Thank you, man. And
thank you. Thank you for doing all this.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll shoot you guys a follow-up email, but again, thank you so much. We have some work to do, guys. I swear.
Yeah, no, this is just part of it, man. This is just the beginning, right? You know, we gotta still do it. Just keep moving forward, bro.
All right. Well, I'll talk soon, Ron. Grace, thank you so much.
Okay. All right, Grace.